The Progressive Caucus is briefing the media ahead of the opening of parliamentary address this evening. We cross live to that.
Here in Parliament, Dr. M.K. Mhlophe, he is going to read the statement, and immediately afterwards we're going to take questions from members of the media. Honorable Mhlophe.
Thank you very much, DP. Welcome to all of you members of the media. Thank you so much. Mine is to read the Progressive Caucus Charter. A commitment statement. We, representatives of the oppressed, declare that we shall unite in strengthening opposition in the Parliament of South Africa to achieve equality, total decolonization, and economic freedom for all. We note that the 2024 national and provincial elections outcome resulted in the formation of a reactionary coalition government that seeks to preserve the current power of white monopoly capital in the economy, give advantage to white privilege, and undo the gains of the liberation movement. This coalition, claiming to be a government of national unity, is a design of white monopoly capital whose objective is to mask the class and race contradictions exposed by the 2024 electoral outcomes. It seeks to foreclose the possibility of the unity of all progressive forces to form a progressive government that will institute a meaningful transformation of the South African economy and society as a whole. The 2024 elections were a target of big capital and imperialist forces who sought to undermine the will of the people. They used money to propel liberal and neo-colonial political party outfits who united in the form of moonshot coalition, clearly setting themselves against liberation movement associated formations. Upon electoral defeat, the capitalist establishment realized the liberation movement forces constitute 70% majority. Instead of continuing with its Moonlight project, which had instigated class divisions, it now advocated for the unity of all in order to mask and contain the obvious explosion against its domination. This accounts for the birth of the GNU, which does not represent the unity of the oppressed, but an empty elite coalition of predominantly liberal and neo-colonial parties. 30 years into our so-called democracy, South Africa teeters on the edge of reckoning. Economic power is still monopolized by the ruling elite, while the masses are suffocated by relentless socio-economic oppression. The vast majority are landless, denied educational opportunities, and shackled by the chains of apartheid's enduring legacy. In this urgent and volatile landscape, the Progressive Caucus emerges, resolute in our mission to dismantle the status quo and blaze a revolutionary path towards true justice and equality. We, the Progressive Caucus, representing 102 seats in the National Assembly, bring together Umkhonto weSizwe Party, MK Party, the Economic Freedom Fighters, EFF, the African Transformation Movement, ATM, the National Colored Congress, NCC, and the United African Transformation, UAT, to oppose the elite pact masquerading as national unity. We pledge to remain faithful to the true aspirations of the oppressed on transformation of colonial patterns of ownership, achieving equality, justice, and total economic freedom. Accordingly, 1, we shall fight for expropriation of land without compensation for equitable redistribution. 2, we shall fight for nationalization of the commanding heights of the economy, in particular the banks and mines. 3, we shall strengthen our democracy by ensuring that the government and all captains of the ruling class are held accountable to achieve a corrupt-free society. 4, we shall fight for decolonization of legal and cultural apparatuses in society as a whole, with emphasis on an Afrocentric philosophy of law. 5, we shall fight for free quality education, healthcare, housing, water, and sanitation. 6, we shall fight for the industrial development of the African economy, attainment of peace and stability in all its nations. 7, we shall defend and promote the liberation struggle legacy of progressive internationalism. B, what is to be progressive? In the current domestic and international balance of forces, to be progressive means the following. 1, anti-capitalism. All who seek an alternative to capitalism as an economic strategy and system of life, and who are in pursuit of a society anchored by the principle of collective ownership and benefit from the means of production. 2, anti-colonialism. All who oppose colonialism, the creation of racially divided society to achieve the economic, social, and spiritual exploitation of the oppressed of the world, especially as it occurred in Africa and elsewhere, beginning with the transatlantic slave trade up to the apartheid system. 3, anti-racism. All who oppose a way of life in which white people are privileged over black people in all aspects of life and perpetuate the exploitation and exclusion of black people based on the color of their skin. By black, we refer to those who were disenfranchised by the apartheid regime on the basis of their skin color. 4, anti-sexism. All who oppose the oppression of women or any person on the basis of their gender or sexuality. We shall fight for the total elimination of gender-based violence in our society. Anti-imperialist. All who oppose the domination of global capitalism and its driving countries and institutions in the world system. We shall always stand with the oppressed of the world. We reaffirm international solidarity with the people of Western Sahara, Cuba, and Palestine who remain under the yoke of imperialist domination. We shall defend the Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, commonly known as BRICS, International Forum in the interest of the transformation of the global balance of forces and in favor of global South and the oppressed on the world. 6, the rule of law. We shall promote the supremacy of the rule of law. However, we are prepared to oppose any unjust law. We shall advocate for complete decolonization of our legal framework to reflect justice, equality, and an Afrocentric legal philosophy and praxis. 7, we shall defend and promote the principle of collective bargaining. Workers' rights and freedoms shall be central to our program. 8, traditional leadership. We shall defend and promote institutions of traditional leadership and customs. In the current South African Parliament, to be progressive means a refusal to be part of the government of national unity, since it is a mere executive for the management of the common affairs of the white and neo-colonial bourgeoisie. Minimum program, we shall join we shall join unite in action to ensure that the Seventh Parliament achieves the following. 1. Revival of the amendment of the Constitution to achieve expropriation of land without compensation for equal distribution. 2. Revival of the Phala impeachment process to hold the sitting president accountable for all reported abuses of power in terms of the Constitution and the laws of this country. 3. We shall propose bills to legislate the following, among others: 1. Insourcing of security guards, cleaners, and other general workers in government departments and related entities. B. Provision of free sanitary towels for the poor. C. Nationalization of the South African Reserve Bank. D. Repeal of all apartheid laws. E. Introduction of a foreign agents bill. F. Cancelling of student debts. 4. We shall propose the following parliamentary inquiries. A. An inquiry into rand manipulation. B. Inquiry into sexual abuses of inmates in prison. And C. Conditions and remunerations of farm and domestic workers. In conclusion, although the Progressive Caucus is formed in the context of the Seventh Parliament, it will not be limited to Parliament as a forum to achieve its objectives. We shall work together to broaden our collaboration and cooperation with all progressive formations of the working class and people in general. We shall mobilize and reach out to progressive formations of workers, the landless, traditional and religious leaders, and all progressive forces outside Parliament in a united action for the total liberation of all oppressed people in our country and the world. We call upon every worker, every landless South African, every young person who has been denied opportunities, and every citizen still shackled by the chains of economic oppression to rise with us. The unity you have been yearning for is happening. We stand at the precipice of a revolutionary change, a moment that will redefine our future and dismantle the remnants of apartheid's legacies. Let us ignite the spirit of resistance in every corner of our land. Let the voices of the oppressed roar louder than ever, echoing through the halls of power and across the nation. We are not merely fighting for policy changes, we are fighting for our dignity, our future, and our very existence. This is our call to arms. We shall not rest until the land is returned to the people, until the wealth of our nation serves all its citizens, until the chains of poverty are broken, and until true equality and justice are achieved. Our struggle is just, our cause is righteous, and our determination is unwavering. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Honorable Dr. Hlophe. We are now going to open the floor for questions from members of the media. We request that when you raise your hand, we point at you, you must introduce yourself, and then you must use the microphone to ask the question so that it's properly captured. So those who want to ask questions, so number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, number 6, number 7, number 8. Number 1.
Thank you very much. It's Habib from Radio Islam. Dr. Hlophe, are you able to share any specifics on how you intend to champion the cause of the Palestinian people in Parliament? Thank you.
Number 2.
Suleiman from Radio Islam. Two quick ones. Dr. Flope, are you in a position to share with us some specifics in terms of how you intend to pursue constitutional reform? And a quick one for Mr. Malema. Radio Islam interviewed the Speaker of Parliament this morning. She said the 6th administration has dealt with the Pala Pala issue, and as things stand, she doesn't see any need for it to be on the agenda currently. On what basis will the Progressive Caucus be attempting to reintroduce the Pala Pala issue onto the agenda of Parliament? Thank you.
Number 3, can we request that those who spoke first switch off their microphones because they can't concurrently operate? Number 3.
Salmona, my name is Cindy Letsele with Bloomberg News. 3 quick questions. You mentioned that you have 102 of the seats that are in Parliament. As this caucus, you would require a 2/3 majority to amend the Constitution. So, at your calculation, how many more seats do you need? And then linked to that, is the door still open to having negotiations with parties that have now joined the GNU, which initially were a part of this caucus? I'm thinking UDM, PAC, and the likes. And then on the foreign agents bill, could you just elaborate a little bit more on exactly what that entails? Thank you very much.
Number 4.
My name is Karine Duplessis. I'm from the Africa Report. I also have 2 questions. The one was kind of asked, but your battle plan with regards to reintroducing the Pala Pala matter, do you have specifics on that? Your battle plan with regards to returning the land issue to the agenda, how will you go about that? And how long do you give the Grand Coalition Government of National Unity? How long do you think it will last from your perspective, and why? Thank you.
Number 5.
Good afternoon. My name is Sanda Moleko from the Sunday Times. This question is for Dr. Mahladzi of the UAT. You initially were one of the founding members, essentially, of the Progressive Caucus. You then left, joined the GNU, and I think Dr. Flope has adequately described the ideals upon which the Progressive Caucus is or stands for, rather. You then left, joined the GNU. You left the Progressive Caucus, you joined the GNU, you've now come back to the Progressive Caucus. What changed in your ideology and your stance or allegiance to what the Progressive Caucus stands for? Thank you very much.
Number 6. SABC. Debo.
Okay, good afternoon. My name is Debo Mukoba. I'm with the SABC. The last time, I would say, the 6th administration, at some point, the governing party had around 230 seats, which then left around 170 seats or members in the opposition. This time around, we've got 102 seats. How do we envisage to have real impact this time around, as opposed to having had impact while they were around 170 seats in the last administration? With 102 seats, how effective do you see yourself? And what do you say to political parties, for instance, that are deemed to be progressive, like the PAC, by extension, I think, like maybe the UDM, who are now part of the GNU? How do you characterize them? Do you see them as people who have abandoned the real cause that you're championing? Or maybe see them, for a lack of a better way, sellouts? How do you characterize them? Thank you.
Number 7, SABC.
Samkele Masego from the SABC. My question will be directed to the leader of the EFF and the leader of the official opposition and also the other panelists. In the main, when you look at the program of action in the amendment of the Constitution, who are some of the political formations that you will be seeking to engage with, who are part of the government of national unity? Are you going to be giving an olive branch to the erstwhile liberation movement, knowing that they themselves are particularly split on this issue of the government of national unity? You've got many of their MPs who are particularly not happy with the ANC entering into some sort of a working arrangement with a neoliberal party, perceivedly like the Democratic Alliance. Then secondly, to the EFF leader, in your negotiations with the ANC, you had said that you will not bring up the impeachment of the president. What has made you change tune this time around to re-bring about this particular issue on the impeachment of the president? Is it because they decided not to go into a formal coalition with the economic freedom fighters? Then lastly, to the broader Progressive Caucus, when you look at the deplorable conditions of the marginalized within the country, what will be the main program of action, particularly on the land question, despite amending Section 25 of the Constitution in Parliament, particularly when it comes to an issue that was once brought about by a former minister, and now a deputy minister, on a referendum for the country on the land question? Why is a referendum not part of one of the processes that you will embark on as the Progressive Caucus? Thank you.
Number 8.
Maribongwe Makrina from the Independent Media. My question is directed to the EFF. Has the Speaker communicated officially with your party in connection with the letter that you submitted at the inaugural sitting of the National Assembly regarding the motion on Palapala? Thank you.
Thank you very much. We're then now going to take responses from the leaders. Let's start with the president of the UAT, Wanda Mahlatsi, Honorable Wanda Mahlatsi. You can use the microphone. I'm sure these microphones will be able to pick out from the broadcast process.
Okay, Khotom Africa. This is Dr. Wanda Mahlatsi, the president of the United African Transformation. I have to put it clear. UAT never left the Progressive Caucus, but the UAT was invited for presentation. The ANC called us to present their case and say, we want you to participate, to be an active participant in the GNU. So the UAT never left the GNU. We have never been part of the GNU. We can go to all the archive, we can go to our media platforms. We have never announced that we are part of GNU. So let's put it clear. The UAT is still part of the Progressive Caucus, right from the beginning to date. Kanimambo.
President of the ATM.
Thank you. I'll take the question about the foreign agents. The bill seeks to drive the process of ensuring there's transparency of all NGOs that are operating in our country that are receiving funding above 200,000. We want those NGOs that are involved in political, particularly for political activities, to be formally recognized as foreign agents. As they're in the country, one would view them as advancing interest of foreigners in our country. Then I'll also take the question of Palapala to state that when the ANC voted in 2022, they had a condition there, they kept emphasizing the condition that that report has been taken on judicial review. You'll recall that the president took that report to the Constitutional Court. And they were saying, pending that report being actually confirmed that it is legally flawed, they cannot continue with the process. Now, when that case or that legal review that they took to the Constitutional Court was thrown outside, meaning they could not proceed. As it stands, that report, it is still standing. It has not been set aside by any court of law. Now, if we're to go back to what the Constitution requires the National Assembly to do, particularly Section 42, subsection 3 of the Constitution, which mandates the National Assembly to scrutinize the actions of the executive. As we sit here now, Parliament, the National Assembly, has not done so. Put aside that the public protector, the other institutions may have issued reports, but the president is not elected by the public protector, not elected by the Reserve Bank, he's elected by the National Assembly. Therefore, it is on that basis that it needs to be brought back. And we'll recall that there's also court processes that we're embarking on as the ATM to set aside the report of the public protector, the EFF has gone to the Constitutional Court to set aside that decision of the National Assembly in December as a decision that is irrational. So it is on that basis that that matter must be brought back to Parliament so that Parliament does its role of oversight and not delegate that responsibility to other institutions, by the way, who are also appointed by the very same president. They need to scrutinize. Thank you.
President of the National Colored Congress, you can use that one then, by you, the microphone. I hope it won't obstruct the and then you can take the microphone up, yes, yeah.
So many questions were asked. I'm going to respond to SABC. On the issue of what are we going to do about the land issue, speaking about the referendum. The Progressive Caucus is changing its first nappy today. It took Cyril almost a month just to put together the so-called GNU. There are many discussions that we're going to have about the way forward, and many disagreements will occur. And we hope to make small compromises only. This caucus is not here to make big compromises like they're doing in the so-called GNU, which will disaffect poor people in particular. And then on the second question, with regards to the olive branch that we are being spoken about to parties like the PAC and the UDM, there are conflicting views, and that is a discussion that is ongoing. Surprisingly, the Commander-in-Chief of the EFF extends an olive branch to these parties. The NCC feels that they are contaminated and that they must not be allowed back, that these people have sold our revolution. And those are the types of discussions that are ongoing, and many people will be surprised to see us at this table. But in the struggle for equality, for shared ownership, and true freedom, these are my comrades. Let me assure you that this is not a marriage that probably won't last a lifetime. But this is what is needed by the poor right now, because the GNU is not a GNU, it's a GUN. That's how you spell gun, Mr. Steenhuisen. It's pointed at the aspirations of the poor, at the hopes and the dreams and the lives and the food of people who need it. It's a sellout. I want to answer one more question with regards to Palapala. Palapala, in our view, was the get out of jail card for Cyril Ramaphosa. That is why he was so desperate to have the DA included in this GUN, which is destined to kill the poor. Thank you.
President of the Economic Freedom Fighters.
Thank you very much. The Palestinian question has been championed in Parliament even before, where we sponsored a motion that was adopted by Parliament advocating for the removal of Israeli embassy because we cannot share a territory with murderers. That resolution stands, and it is the responsibility of Parliament to ensure that the executive implement the Parliament resolution, and they will not stop until that matter has been attended to. You should know that the DA it's a product of an apartheid system which has always been in cahoots with the Israeli state. It's a relationship that the Israelis are ashamed of, but you can be guaranteed that Israel provided weapons during apartheid to the apartheid regime in exchange for minerals. The biggest trade Israel had in the 70s and 60s was with South Africa, because South Africa needed the arms and Israel needed money and investors. So the GNU, being a product of that arrangement of apartheid beneficiaries, there is in no way it will fight for the total liberation of the people of Palestine. So the Palestinian question is threatened by this government of national unity, because the DA it's a beneficiary of the National Party's government, and the DA has got remnants, including Freedom Front of apartheid, the people who were advocating for the genocide of African people. So it's not going to be an easy task. The progress we made on Palestine in South Africa has been reversed by this elite pact, but that doesn't mean we should not continue with the fight for the total liberation of the people of Palestine. Phala is not a dead issue. She cannot communicate with us through the media. We didn't communicate with her through the media. If this is how she wants to start as a speaker, she's going to have a very difficult time. Phala has been submitted to her through a formal letter, and she will have to follow the parliament processes to respond to us. The parliament, the seventh parliament, can deal with any matter. There's no way someone should say this matter was dealt with by the sixth parliament, therefore seventh parliament can't deal with it. If it means bringing it up fresh, where we have to constitute a new panel to make investigations, we will use the previous panel's recommendations as evidence to the new panel and then come back to vote again. It is so opportunistic for DA to say it will not vote for Phala impeachment because of VBS. When we're voting in favor of Phala impeachment report, the VBS story was there. They are just using, we voted together even when there was a VBS story. It's not like now there is a new story which is going to disturb them from voting with the EFF. They are using the VBS to abandon their own earlier stance for expediency. But equally, they are using Phala to hold Ramaphosa with scrotum. Because every time he tries to move, they are going to say Phala. Every time he tries to move, Phala. That's why they say, no, won't vote with these people. But they don't have a reason why they can't vote with us. They say, no, VBS is a story that is far bigger than what Phala is, and therefore we can't vote with them. That is an excuse. We voted together with the DA on Phala even when there was VBS story. So there is no story of a VBS that can make the DA change their mind. They are just being opportunistic, but also wanting to use that issue to blackmail Ramaphosa. Any matter that required two-thirds majority, even in the past, before the arrival of MK, we were 44. We are now 102. But we got Parliament to vote in favor of amendment of Section 25 to allow the expropriation of land without compensation. That resolution required two-thirds, and we did not have the numbers even at that time. But we were able to get those numbers. We will do the same even with this new Parliament. Now that we are 102, it means we are not looking for serious numbers to increase and then get this matter in the right direction. The PAC is already speaking about expropriation of land without compensation right inside cabinet. So we might not be together in the Progressive Caucus, but there might be issues that brings us together. And therefore, from time to time, if we share common grounds on any matter, it will not say, no, because they are not in the GNU, we can't vote with them. As long as we agree that this is the way to go. We voted for land expropriation without compensation with the ANC, and we voted for Phala with the DA. It didn't mean we were in an alliance with any of the two. It was issues that were common, and we're agreeing on those matters. UDM, PAC, NCC leadership is right. They sold out, and we are extremely offended by that, because even when they were abandoning us, they never came back to us to say, count us out. That is an act of cowardice. A genuine, legitimate leader, once they change their minds, they have to come back and say, guys, don't count on us. We've eaten hot food from the other side, and therefore we're unable to continue with the agenda. When they want to come back, that discussion will take place with them at that moment. But for now, we are extremely disappointed by their actions, where they put a preference of blue lights over the lives of our people. Many of them, for sure, they realized in the next election, they are likely not to come back. So they must eat on their way out. That's why they accepted certain things. It's the same thing with Section 25. Where we look at the numbers, we'll do what we did even in the past to get the numbers on our side. The GNU will not last long. I give it a year. If it goes beyond a year, it will be 2 years, because after the ANC conference, it will collapse. Remember, the DA said we are prepared to work with the ANC of Cyril Ramaphosa. So the ANC conference is going to remove Cyril Ramaphosa, whether he likes it or not. It's his second term. He's not coming back. So the most likelihood, if they survive a year, after the ANC conference, they will not succeed, because like province of Gauteng, look at it. It has completely rejected the DA and went on to constitute government without the DA. And we're going to make sure that that government of Gauteng works. We're going to support it, because not to support the government of Gauteng is to support the DA. So if the Gauteng government fails, then the doomsayers are going to say, you see, if you don't work with the DA, you are going to fail. So we are not in an alliance with them. We're not voting for them for anything. We are going to vote for their budget, for whatever is required from us, in order to defeat the DA and demonstrate to the national leadership that you could have done the same. You don't need the DA for you to survive with the numbers you have. As long as you put progressive proposals on the table, you can still govern without having 50+1, because no one won elections. No one said we must work together. The story that the electorate said we must work together, it's a fiction. Someone just created it. They did not vote for anyone. So if no one is voted for, it means from time to time we must consult one another and get consensus from amongst the parties that are voted into power. The ANC missed that opportunity and went into bed with murderers who are still to account for the killings of our people. When we negotiated with the ANC, we never said we'll not bring Palapan. Remember, in a year, 5 years before, when we went, the condition was that the president must be removed. So we said, we're not coming with that condition. Let's deal with issues. Because we knew, after we have agreed, along the other progressive forces, the issue of the president is going to come. It doesn't have to be a deal breaker. Because if we had used it as a deal breaker, the ANC will be saying, we did not negotiate with them because they came with a deal breaker and we could not budge from that level. We said, okay, let's leave that. Even land expropriation and all of that, let's leave them. Let's talk about what are the immediate interests for our people.
Well, those are visuals and some of the comments that you got out of that Progressive Caucus, where they have been briefing the media over the past 15, 20 minutes or so.